said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy... Flyover State of Fear. Welcome to Flyover State of Fear. I got a great guest today, Bryan Starr, just a wonderful physical media collector, first of all, who I've just been a fan of, and he makes great videos and has an awesome YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, all the above, of just his really positive and friendly content. Bryan, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for reaching out. I did a podcast earlier today, and what I've been saying to people is I am on the podcast circuit. I am ready to talk movies and enjoying every bit of it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you, and I know how that could be like doing multiple in one day. So I appreciate it because it's just because it's podcasts. You're like, it won't be bad, and then you do like a few, and you're like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
So thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and I do want to say, before we were talking a little beforehand, but I've always really liked your stuff that you put out there, especially like the positivity you bring to things. It's really refreshing. So thanks for that. And then I mean, I know with your recent, well, when this is released might not be as recent, but because of you, I will be watching Willow and the new series. I've never seen the movie or the old one, and so.
It's you got to get on the movie. It is directed by Ron Howard, I believe, written by George Lucas, and then produced by Lucasfilm.
Sure,
it's just magical. It's great. Val Kilmer, of course, in his prime, and then Warwick Davis, of course, and it's just fun.
I'm very curious to check it out because I really only know Warwick Davis from his no pun intended, his short-lived TV show Too Short, or Life's Too Short. Life's Too Short.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's why I said no pun intended. It wasn't even a little person joke. The show's called Life's Too Short.
Yeah.
And it's like a Curb-esque show. I think it's a Ricky Gervais produced show from like the mid 2000s on HBO about him trying to be continuing acting and getting gigs, and it's very funny and charming, and
I'm gonna look that up.
Life's Too Short. Anyway, so for new listeners today, we're talking about Saw. But before we get into that, I do want to ask, like to ask every guest, what is your horror origin story, and more, how did you get into either what you're into, or if you're not into horror? I mean, it's a very broad question. So
so I was scarred as a kid with horror. And today I say that I am new to horror.
Okay.
And it's because I was scarred as a kid. So when I was a kid, I accidentally watched the opening of Children of the Corn. Which is just brutal. And it was one of those. I had one of those TVs that had a couple of channels, and you had to turn the knob. Still, it was like a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down type of situation.
I used to bring them home from the side of the road.
Yeah, sure.
Like people throw them out trash day.
Oh yeah.
And I probably had a stack of like four of them in my room. For whenever my parents told me to leave. So I'm a couple of dials, and you'd get.
Yeah.
They're mostly black and white, and if I got a cable station in them, I was like pumped and was like, you can't turn the TV off.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's kind of what that was. And for some reason I watched it, and then that's also mixed with some scenes from some of the Chucky movies. And it just terrified me. And then the big one that really like stopped me even like taking a peek at horror was the Nickelodeon show Are You Afraid of the
Oh,
Dark?
it's my all-time favorite show. Is there an episode you have in particular that really?
I should have prepared
Oh no,
off the top of my head, but it's the one where she microwaves the comic,
oh
and
yeah, that ghastly grinner.
there it is.
Yeah.
And when he comes up above the comic, the comic rack,
Mm-hmm.
I
The
turn
grinner.
it off and never watched it. I mean, obviously, I've seen it since because I
That.
have since revisited it. But that was the final nail in the coffin.
Oh
For
my
me.
god, that is such a great episode and like iconic. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, I'm a big fan of starter horror and like children's horror stuff like that. So I still
Yes.
to this
Yes.
day I'm like
Yeah.
comfort content.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
revisit if you can, and I don't know, don't traumatize your daughter at all.
Sure.
Uh, but there's an episode called The Night Shift, and it actually stars Sloane from Entourage, that actress. Um, coincidentally, and it's about a vampire at a hospital, like using the blood in the hospital,
Sweet. Yeah.
and but the makeup, yeah, it's and everyone's turning, and the makeup to this day is like a jarringly terrifying vampire. It's like green, he has red
Sure.
eyes, he
Yeah.
chokes her and holds her over the building, he gets lit
Sheesh.
on fire. Like, it's scary. So, and then the grinner, and there's a few episodes of Are You
Yeah.
Afraid of the Dark that I feel like people stand out. I feel like you mentioned Chucky also,
Yeah.
of like that and bits and pieces. Were you a because you sound a little bit like myself, were you a block or a video store blockbuster, I need to run down the horror section but I don't want to look at anything but I want to
Mm.
take a peek runner? Because I remember the Child's Play movies, those covers of like the Jack in the Box, yes,
Yeah. Right.
freaked me
Yeah.
out, but I try to run through because I
Yeah.
don't want to be there, but I want it to be there.
Yeah. I recently I've been really racking my brain on some recent memories or some memories of back in the day of the horror section in the rental area. One that comes to mind, which I just watched for the first time this year,
Mhm.
is oh my gosh, it's the Uncle Sam. The cover for Uncle Sam
Oh, I've never seen
was
that. Yeah.
so it just stuck in my head.
Hmm.
And now that I'm into horror, and I'll get to that in a second, I've since purchased it and then I watched it. Honestly, it's not great. I'll be honest. Like,
Uncle Sam. I gotta look
yeah,
that up.
basically, this soldier who is literally named Sam and an uncle to this kid goes crazy essentially, and
Oh
they think
yeah,
he's yeah,
this
it's
cover rules.
yeah, and it's just stuck in my head
Sure.
for my entire life. And there's some other covers as well, but I don't know why that one just really got to me. And it's fun that I have now like finished the whole circle of seeing it and kind of like it being ingrained in my head and then
Hmm.
finally watching it. So, but no, like what I've been telling people is within the past 4 years, I have really gotten into horror. During
Gotcha.
my high school and college days, I would every now and then take a peek.
Hmm.
Saw, for instance, Exorcism of Emily Rose, and but that was it. I would even like admit to people that I don't watch horror. I don't think it's great. I think it's bad. Because
Sure.
some of it is,
Yeah. Oh,
especially like
it's
some of like the modern stuff, 2006, which you look back at it now and you kind of love it, but a little bit cheesy. And but but then was like, you know what? But I do kind of like a smart horror. I do
hmm
kind of like a smart thriller. But then I've kind of just since 2004, I mean, my bad, since 4 years ago, have taken a deep dive into the classics, and so
sure.
um, I have now been experiencing the classics for the very first time. The biggest one being I saw Halloween for the first time last year
Oh
on
no,
Halloween.
really?
Yeah,
Congratulations. What is
and
the
I'm obsessed.
hell yeah.
It got me. Like
yeah.
I totally understood it. I have a filmmaking background, so
Okay.
I also watch it as uh, they did whatever they could back then to make a movie on these kind of lower budgets, and with the music and how the shots are set up and the scares, which really aren't crazy in your face, but they're subtle and perfect, and just seeing it all come together when the credits rolled, I was like sold. I was a fan of Carpenter before that, with the few that I had seen, within these past 4 years. But that one just solidified it for me. It's fantastic.
It's 100%. That is so great to see, because I consider that a perfect. As perfect of a, I don't think any movie's perfect, but as perfect of a movie as you could get because of that. Like you said, like from a filmmaking background, I'm not myself, but like there's just things in it. It's like paced really well. There's some shots in there. Like there's goofiness here and there, and it's so funny you mention that because I went to a screening of that. Me and some friends went to a screening of that on Halloween in our local like art house theater this year.
Nice.
And there were just pockets of group, which I can only really call them like children because I don't know, like, which I think the last 20 minutes of that is some of the most tense like movie. They thought it was the funniest thing. We were so mad by the end of the movie because it ruined the And there's things you can laugh about, like to this day, like every line Loomis delivers just makes me chuckle and like a smiling way. But I love to hear that, and they're the classics. I mean, my guy of that is Freddy.
Yeah, sure.
And the Nightmare. Well, not all of the Nightmares. The Nancy trilogy and the rest are just more of a. I would need a good practical effect. But that's great. I hope you continue your journey on like finding new movies. And before we jump into Saw, have you delved into any of the Candymans yet?
No, I've seen. My bad. I've seen the first Candyman. I did not see anything else. I do have. I know I have 3 on Bestron, the Bestron Blu-ray.
Yeah,
and then I did not see the remake or the
reboot.
Reboot.
2 and 3 are more slashers. So if you've seen the original, that's really it. And then the new reboot was a really great way to do that and bring a character back to life.
Great.
And so I recommend almost going Candyman to Candyman, and 2 and 3 are they're fine. I had to be recently resold on them myself. I promised someone I was like, I'll watch them again, and I did, and I was like, okay, I like them better, but not same. But I love it. So you pick Saw, and thing with Saw is, I mean that. So I'm 30, and I remember this movie very vividly in its release. I was probably 11 or 12. Anyway, why did you pick Saw? Before I read the synopsis,
I have a very good soundbite whenever anyone brings up Saw, and in my experience, Saw has the greatest plot twist of all time.
Okay.
And obviously, there might be better plot twists out there, but in my experience, here's how it happens. Again, not being a horror fan, I did not see it in theaters. Especially with the more gory stuff, I definitely never got into during that time, high school, early high school.
That was the beginning of the torture porn. That was the match started the fire of that. So,
and so someone basically was like, "You gotta watch Saw." And spoiler alert for anyone listening who hasn't seen the movie, but the person who was like, "You got to watch Saw. The plot twist is insane. It's one of the guys in the room." They literally told me the plot twist. And so I'm like, okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it and enjoying the heck out of it because it's low budget. The filmmaking is wild. And now that we've seen James Wan do what he does, especially with *Malignant*, wild filmmaking. and it's great, and it's a blast. But I'm watching that movie, and the whole time I'm trying to figure out: is it Lee Winnell? Is it Carrie Yules? Who's it? Who is it?
Yeah, you knew.
And they're kind of leaning. They're kind of like, all right, is it him? The story's kind of like building and revealing things about each character. And the whole time I'm like, okay, who is it? And the guy's cutting his leg off. I'm like, it's not him. He's cutting his leg off. And then Tobin Bell stands up at the end of that movie, and
it's stunning.
Lost it. Because I, of course, never expected the dead guy on the floor to get up, to be the guy in the room, as my friend, spoiled it for me. So I always say I was told the plot twist, and I think it's the greatest plot twist of all time because of my experience of kind of being lied to in a way.
You were blatantly told, and then they kind of fucked with you. You mess with your mind to get
and
back.
It made it better. It made it better. Yeah.
I have that's so neat, and what a way to go into a movie. I have a vivid memory of so this is 2003, and I remember my dad and my brother, my brother's 4 years older than me. They saw it in theaters, and my mom and me picked them up at the theater, and my dad coming in the car and going, "You guys, the twist!" He wouldn't tell us, but he was like, "You wouldn't believe it coming." And I still remember he did the same thing with The Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
and like, I don't know, you're a movie person. I remember things that relate to movies. Like if you have an event, I more remember what movie you were seeing then. So I just remember his animated, his excitement in the car, and then he could care less about any of the sequels or anything else. But that initial one, and I remember the first time I had seen it was maybe like 3 years later or so, maybe 2 years after its release.
Cool.
Because I remember seeing Saw 2 in theaters, like with like the kids, like we're gonna get parents bought a ticket, but a bunch of with kids.
Yep.
And I remember it was someone had it on a jailbroken PS2, and they had all these movies loaded into this PS2, and I thought it was the coolest thing at the time. And I was terrified to watch it because I was a scared young kid. But we were over a family friend's house, and that person had that jail. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sit down," and it scared the shit out of me. And I don't think I appreciated the twist, to be honest with you, until I watched it again as probably more in my teens.
Right.
But thank you. So what I like to do is I like to read the synopsis that I pulled from Google. Just saw one movie, and I only like to read this because they're either nice and accurate or completely like Brian and Joe talk about a podcast and they talk about Saw and no details. Like it. So we'll see what they say. And I haven't read it yet for all those. Photographer Adam Stanheight, I didn't know he had a last name, and oncologist Lawrence Gordon regain consciousness while chained to pipes at either end of a filthy bathroom. As the two men realize they've been trapped by a sadistic serial killer named Jigsaw and must complete his pervasive puzzle to live, flashbacks relate the fates of his previous victims. Meanwhile, Dr. Gordon's wife, a young daughter, are forced to watch this torture via closed circuit video. So it's pretty accurate. It's one of the more accurate ones I think I've read.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this movie, it's crazy how it's like you said, it is low budget. I mean, it's $1 million. It's a smash hit. It's $103 million in return.
Yeah.
Spawned 9 sequels. That's how I watched it. I watched it in one of those packs you buy for $20 that
has them all
of them, and not Spiral. And I put Spiral on there. That was a fun movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it really throws you into the movie. I mean, the movie starts with, although I did, for my first note, I did get nostalgic about the old Twisted Pictures logo. So, well, you didn't really watching, like, especially movies then in, like, my middle school, and you'd see Twisted Pictures logo, and I go, "Oh, this is going to be like the worst thing I've ever seen," or Saw.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but they wake up they basically wake up in a bathtub, and in this bathroom, and there's skepticism, and it's like, and also, I don't know about you, were you ever relate that it's Carrie Elwes at first? They were like, that's Wesley from Princess Bride. It took me like
Yeah.
too long to connect the dots.
No, I knew it immediately. Princess Bride's a big,
Okay.
just like Willow. Princess Bride's a big movie in our family. So yeah,
get the Criterion if you don't have it. It's a nice.
I believe I do. Yeah,
it's a nice piece.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a nice little book. Anyway, so yeah, we just kind of get like thrown right into the movie where this mystery unfolds, right? It's this dingy room, and they do reveal a man in the middle of the floor that's shot, and we've already revealed the twist, which this is just and everyone listen, this is spoilers conversation. I'm gonna jump around.
Sure.
So that's kind of where we're starting with two men. And then one is Lee Winnell, who is the writer and future director of this film. And I think it's so neat that him and James Wan tried to make this in Australia. And they were just offered a little bit more money to do it in the United States. And it sold better. And the reality is Lee Winnell there should be a different actor not being Lee Winnell, but budgets, it's like, no, we're going to use our guy. Yep. I mean, James Wan pulled off probably the smartest gamble of anyone, and didn't get paid to make the movie and ask for a percentage of the box office.
Yeah.
I mean, little do you know. I mean, that, I know who did famously Spielberg did that. We know George Lucas did that with Star Wars famously.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, probably the same return on that. But anyway, so you have this intro that's really jarring, and I know it still works today because so anyone who listens, I say this every episode. My wife hates horror movies; she won't watch them, but she was homesick today. And I was like, I need to watch this. I have a podcast. Like, I need to be refreshed. So she sat around and for a little bit, and she's like, "Wait, this is how it starts?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, it's maybe 15 minutes." And she's like, "But they're already getting into like the Saw part."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but." Then she left. I'm like, "There's a bunch of flashbacks and things." And when we got to the razor blade trap, that would say that's when she walked out of the room and was like, "Just come back in an hour and a half."
That's great. That razor blade trap, and James Wan does these just quick zooms in this movie quite a bit, and a lot of them are reveals. And so you see the guy trapped, and then he does this zoom outs, and there's even more razor blades, and again, like I think about how low this budget is, and I think about how these sets were just empty rooms, and then I see how they dressed it. It's absolutely amazing.
It's great
what they were able to do. There's like I think there's a hallway that looks like a set and a bedroom that looks like a set, and that's about it. Everything else looks pretty dang solid for their budget.
The warehouse looks like a warehouse where he's working.
Yeah.
The bedroom is
wonderful.
Bedroom is not even that bad, because I definitely know. I mean, you said you're on your podcast circuit right now. Like, I know when doing a podcast, I'm noticing new things, right? Because I'm taking notes instead of watching the movie for once, and I'm like, oh, this, and like, and I mean, I remember I noticed the first time, and it doesn't take away from the movie. It's like, their accents peer out sometimes, right? Carrie Elwes is, sure. They're both two Hans Grubers doing American accent at certain points.
No. It's not great. And Lee Winnell is not an actor.
But the movie's so good you could look past it. It's
absolutely.
It's like, and no, it doesn't matter your budget for that because watch the first Doctor Strange and
Yeah,
like Benedict Cumberbatch. He's gotten better, and I've actually really ended up liking the Doctor Strange character since the first
sure.
Doctor Strange. He's doing
Yeah,
the Hans Gruber is the best I could call it.
yeah,
Anyway,
sure. Yeah. No, I get it.
uh,
I get it.
but so we do get them, and we just get some sort of like early reveals. I do like the there is a little bits of humor in this, which I do like. We see later in James Wan's films. But like they're gonna sell my kidneys on eBay, and like it made me laugh because I literally just for another podcast watched Urban Legend Final Cut,
Mm-hmm.
and like that Urban Legend is shown on video for that.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, like 2 days ago. Um, and but Terry Ellis is a little more the surgeons. He's a little more like keen in this room than Adam. He's a little more observant, and they start looking around, right? And they find stuff in their pockets, which is a tape recorder. Or I'm sorry, Lose it. Carrie Ellis has a bullet, and a cigarette. No, not a cigarette. Yeah, sorry, a bullet and a tape and a key. And try the
Yeah.
the
Right.
key doesn't work for any other change. Both Adam tries it, and Adam also has a tape. And this is then they fashion out the to get the video recording from the dead guy in the middle of the room, and they pop it in, and Lee Winnell's pops in first, and yeah, is he first? And basically, it's just about voyeurism. It's like you watch other people. There's not much
Yeah.
detail to his tape. I feel like as there were to other men. Um, and then he plays it for Carrie Ellis, and Dr. Gordon is like, the tape is just like, this is your wake up call.
Mm-hmm.
You might help people, but you're a bad guy, and if you want to live and save your child and wife, you have to do as I say.
Yeah.
And there are
You have to
clues in
kill.
this room. Yeah,
You
you
have to
have to
kill.
kill.
He's the one that gets the big news
Yeah, you
of
have to
you
kill.
have to kill the other guy.
And
Crazy.
it's like, it's so funny because I don't know. I'm like, I would have done it, but I wouldn't have. You would have done the same thing. And I can't stop looking at your Troll 2 hat, and I want it.
Yeah.
And I want it.
Love it.
It's so good.
So good. And
Uh,
it says "Oh my God" on the back.
that's so good. So
Oh my
I
God.
when you first came on, I was gonna say, is that Troll 2? And then I thought it was Trauma. So I was like, that's a
Ah, right. It is green.
normal-ish.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh my, they're eating her. That is an all-time favorite. So yeah, if Gordon doesn't kill, he has to kill Adam, and so but they realize there's clues all over the room, and Gordon kind of goes because that's really your opening, right? It's like a cold opening of a movie. It's a cold opening almost,
Yeah.
and then he goes, "Oh," Dr. Gordon goes, "I think I might know who this may be."
Yeah.
And we kind of start get these flashbacks, and then a wild Danny Glover appears out of nowhere. Like,
Love it.
it's so good. Do you want to? I'll save it. It's really silly. I had to get confirmation if he lived or died, and the video game apparently has extra footage of him living. Video game, it's like a PS2 game at the time.
Sure.
And that like anecdote made me laugh because it's not canon, but it's also like can be seen as that way. I'm like, okay, 'cause he
Sure.
never pops up in any of the 9 sequels, and
Right.
that is I don't know if you've fallen your found horror love. You've watched the full franchise as a whole.
Saw that plot twist affected me so much. I watched every Saw in theaters after
Oh,
that,
good.
even
Okay.
though I was frightened. But every Halloween we
Mm-hmm.
we would have a fall festival at our high school, after Fall Festival, we'd get in the car and go watch Saw. Then because it came out yearly, they were making
Yeah,
these
every
yearly.
Halloween. And
And I loved because 2 is solid.
I
The
like 2 a
twists in
lot.
that are incredible. 3's okay, and then 4 is also solid. Like the twists at least. Really
It's
great tiebacks. It's so good.
yeah, it's so interesting. Uh, it's an interesting franchise because I agree with you. 2 is a really fun movie, and 3 is not bad. And just how they have to like keep twisting this thing in a pretzel, how this man's plan in like I'm pretty sure most of them try to revert back to the first movie as much as they can to be like, well,
Yeah.
actually, this was going on in this room, and you've been watching 2002 this whole time.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway, but yeah, we get a detective, Danny Glover, and we then get to learn about who the Jigsaw Killer is through a montage of uh just terror, right? We get a scene of what you were talking about. We were talking about earlier the razor blades, and um to me that was always my like the most cringiest trap of the first film, I would say. It's up there for like just a top torture room. I mean, yeah, the bear trap is, I think that's the iconic one.
Yep.
Um, and which was crazy. Doing some research on this, like James Wan, they had to use a real bear trap because they didn't have the budget to, make a prosthetic. So James Wan took test photos and stuff like that in order to sell this movie with
Well,
that on his head.
they filmed a short film.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the short's great. Actually,
He's
that's
literally like he's wearing it.
Yeah.
Lee Winnell.
Lee
He had to put it in
Winnell.
his mouth.
Lee Winnell is Amanda in the short film, basically.
Yeah, right.
And it's a really good short. It's someone's uploaded a nice high res version of it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you get that, and then we also get one with which I always forget about, the guy who lights himself on fire.
Yeah.
We has to find the number in the room. I mean, it's so sadistic. Really, Amanda, by the time you get to Amanda, she really does have the only one you might escape out of.
It's pretty easy compared to the others.
Because especially like the trap is set up in this way too, but the man on the floor is dead. So you're just doing something for survival. You consciously aren't doing a murder.
He does wake up.
No, I know but
right
in her
before,
mind, she thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
So, like Brian, if we were in a room and someone said he's dead and there's something in your stomach and you get out of it, and it was that situation, I would do it. And then if you woke up in the middle of it, that's not my fault.
He woke up right before she stabbed him.
Yeah.
If someone woke up and looked at me in the eyes right before I do it, it's going to be very hard.
No, it's gonna be very hard. You're not wrong.
But it draws to the tension. It draws to the horror of her situation. It's messed up.
It's so messed up. It's a scary one, and I like how, like I said, I've read all the fun facts today, and so I'll be intercutting them. The actress who I'm really blanking, Shawnee Smith.
Yeah,
I'm blanking. Yeah. She was only cast because Lee Winnell. James Wan just was like, oh, I had a crush on. Can we get Shawnee Smith? And then he was like, I had a crush on her growing up from younger roles, and then it was like, yeah. She actually denied it, and they showed her the video. And she's like, okay, and like he was like, I had no idea we could get these type of actors for my movie. So I thought that was really funny to see.
I love that.
So during this, though, Dr. Gordon, we're learning about the cops are on Jigsaw's tail or putting it together. He leaves a signature Jigsaw piece, and that's how he got his name. And this movie does keep this really fun trope that horror movies end up doing. Is in the first one, the killer doesn't call himself Jigsaw. and it's like the media branded it, and that's a trope in horror movies, because they'll be like, the killer didn't have a name, and then by the time they're like, I'm Jigsaw, I'm the cat, and it's pretty neat. So, but for all intents and purposes, we'll call him Jigsaw. Um, and he was like, well, these please let me know if I'm jumping around. Dr. Gordon explains to Adam, was going to this, like, well, the cops took me in for questioning once because they found my pen, a light pen, at the scene of a crime, and I kind of connected to it, but it wasn't my fault, and like that's his introduction to Danny Glover, and we're getting also more just breadcrumbs that like Dr. Gordon's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I think one important thing I kind of skipped over is we also see Jigsaw. He's on the bed, and we meet the orderly who looks a little unhinged, and he's just like, "Oh, John, he's a good guy," and it's right there. I mean, I love that about twist movies. It's all right there once you know
it's
it.
all right there. Yeah. And you see when Jigsaw's on the bed, you see him holding the pen light. That is, later found, and then apparently, I didn't pause, but apparently on his bedside is the reverse bear trap, like schematics.
Yeah, I read that myself.
That's so great.
It's like this perfect, because you're not thinking about the man on the bed. I'm looking at Dr. Gordon being a dick to like these students and these people and everything else in that scene. And but we're made aware of like this creepy guy, Stev. What's his name? Dev? Zep. Zep is his name.
The guy from Lost.
Yeah,
is what I say.
Yeah. Oh, the names all over the place here. Just follow along. And one of like the key things that is said with this and is stuck in the movie in its lore is, I forget who actually says it because I didn't note it down, but someone says to someone else, well, he's actually never killed anyone, so he's not really a killer. And like that's the moral compass around the kills itself, right?
Yeah.
Not true. I argue the not true that he, killed, and his whole morality of things are just terrible. I mean, oh, you're a drug addict. That's the guy in the razor blade. You were depressed.
Yeah.
Come on, like it's so dumb in a good way, but it's such like flawed logic of this man, and so I don't know, the drug addict part is heavily from like 2 up whenever they can't think of a character. It's like, well, they were an addict. That is the worst that is the most cringy kill of the franchise. The number 2's needle pit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Forever.
There's a lot of good stuff in that one. Like why she was shocked to be jumped in, or to be thrown into that.
Yeah, he just tossed her in a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, she wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, weird. So anyway, they did the pen light, and that actually in the order we already talked about it, but that's where we get Amanda, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we do get back to the guys in the room, and they kind of fuck around a little more. And Lee Winnell's like, that's a 2-way mirror. So he throws a brick or something at the mirror to break it, and they see they're being recorded. So now they know it's a show. That they got to do things to appease whomever is in the room.
Yeah.
Watching them. And this is when we now get a flash forward to, which I find the most upsetting and scary part of the movie, is the Monica Potter and her daughter in the house, and the pig. You have the pig scare of the kidnapping. I think around this time, and at first I was thinking. At first you think, oh, this isn't like maybe a week ago. It's that day, right? The daughter is like, Dad, I'm scared, and he's just busy. He's like, I'll be there, and he puts him to bed, and they do the weird. I don't know. She was all upset, and then you tell me if it would work. He's like, well, he plays this piggy went to the market with her, and he's like, it's all better. There's no ghost. There's no scary man anymore.
Yeah.
Explain that to me. That didn't make sense.
Yeah. To be fair, I watched it right before this, but I was walking around setting up some things and getting ready for my trip tomorrow. That was a scene that I was definitely like, I don't care.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's fair.
And so I totally forget that is but I mentioned this earlier, and I talked about like the bedroom, and a good part of the house actually is part of what I was talking about, where they have some bad sets involved. But at the same time, what I like about this whole movie, even though it's pretty cheaply made, the lighting is very well done. And so even though you can kind of tell some of these sets are pretty bad, I'm looking at that scene of him talking to her, and I'm like, man, I've seen a lot of bedroom scenes with awful lighting, and I literally said this like as I'm watching. I was like, they nailed it here. Like,
no, it's
yes,
good.
you can tell some of these areas are sets, but the way how they get away with it is whatever camera they use still holds up today, and their lighting does not look like your average low budget, school film.
Yeah,
that it could have been easily, and
it doesn't. I mean this in the nicest way. It doesn't look like a Skinemax movie.
Yes,
Sort of like the cameras and the lighting and like
the room, literally.
Room. Like the room.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look like Tommy Wiseau's like.
Yeah.
No, but that bedroom scene is because he leaves, and he leaves because he leaves to go hook up, or assumably go hook up, and his wife and him are on the rocks. And I mean, how you could ever cheat on Monica Potter? I just that's my hummingbird. That's Miss Con Air herself. So anyway, he leaves, and then the pig man monster comes out of the closet and kidnaps them and holds them, and he has no idea. And then shortly after that, he ends up into this bathroom.
Yep.
So I do love this one line, and so I'm looking through my notes here. That we get another kind of flashback there with him and Danny Glover. They're talking. They finally realize that he gets dropped back off. It's very like disorganized of how we're being told. But he has this one line. I wrote it down because I think it's so good. He talks about how they nailed the dentist for being a pedophile, and he says, the sore lines under this neighborhood. The sore is lined under this neighborhood too. And I loved it because he gives us this thing, was like, just because you're a doctor, this piece of shit comes through your building too. And I thought it was such a good line, just by Danny Glover. And
great.
We do spend. I do wish we spent a little more time with Danny Glover. This is I think that was actually the last. His scenes were the last to be shot of the film. And his movie's only 18 days shoot in total with everyone. I mean, And they did something really unique too. Is all the stuff in the bathroom main scene is all chronologically shot.
Yep, I love that.
Which is funny. Like, I mean, I remember making movies with like friends growing up, and it reminds me of that because because that's the way. Like, it's like, well, no, you
That's how
gotta
you
shoot it
did
in
it.
order.
You didn't know any other way. Yeah, yeah,
We can't shoot this out of place and put it here.
yeah, exactly.
So, but the detectives, one thing I noticed this time around too with is they're good detectives. I mean, they notice that graffiti in the background and like nail it. Are they smart detectives? No. Because if they not get a warrant, but even just get a few cops to come by and go with them, and I think they're probably all alive.
Yeah, they could have apprehended that guy, but just the two of them, and it took them a little too long to realize you could just shoot those drills. I would have looked for a plug maybe, or a way to cut off power, but yeah.
It's a scene I forgot about. To be honest, like not him getting his neck slit, but the drills.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to this warehouse. They find this gang graffiti. And they're like, well, that territory is only a few blocks, so this really must be, only a handful of buildings. And they do nail it down, and they go into this warehouse, and I mean, it's Jigsaw's workshop. I love the detail of the model of the bathroom. They
Oh
call
yeah,
it,
yeah, yep.
exactly. I mean, I paused it down to the shirt that it's down to the blue collar shirt that Carrie Ellis is wearing.
How would he know that? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then you see the Jigsaw puppet, which is also, I know we haven't mentioned yet because that's become the like iconic iconography from this. I literally have a horror coffee mug that's like best friends forever, and he's one of the people holding like hands with
that's great.
With Freddy or someone,
Yeah.
and that puppet's really cool because it's literally made out of paper mache, toilet paper, and golf ball, ping pong balls, and it's very, it's great too of how it's made because it also fits who um not John Milton, that's another person. What's his last name? John Kramer would be.
Yeah.
And then what's silly about it is I think they they still use the original version in 2, and then they had a different one. And then they had such a good budget by 3 that they were like, we'll just recreate it to work really well. We can't use this anymore.
Yeah.
So you find all of that, but like you just said, they have the drill set up, and there's a guy who's being prepped for a jigsaw trap because it seemed like his workshop. Which I get we were talking about limited sets, but it's a podcast, so I'm thinking about it a little more. And the cops, instead of freeing him, are like, well, let's see where this goes.
Yeah, right. They cover him back up.
And there's 2 things that happen where I go, what the fuck are you doing? One, when they toss each other the guns in front of Jigsaw.
I don't remember that. I mean, again, I was like,
yeah. He's like, here, you told him, and he tosses him the shotgun for Danny Glover to hold. Well,
okay.
When either one just take care of the other, and Danny Glover's too occupied of also watching what's going on with his partner than just taking care of Jigsaw. So that's where he gets his neck slit. And
the guy has Jigsaw has a Assassin's Creed knife.
Yeah, it's cool shit. It's
to go out, slices him in the throat.
Yeah, real awesome. Assassin's Creed. Yeah, and the other detective, I believe his name is. I want to say I wrote it down. I want to say his name is Ming. Something Ing. Anyway,
He-
he chases after him. He does successfully. So he shoots the locks out, or like to kill a power source. They were cheap wired drills,
Yeah.
and runs down, and he's chasing John Milton. John Milton, that's fucking Seven. Keeps chasing John Kramer and thinks he shoots him in the back, but really he just played dead. And hits a tripwire and just gets 15 shotguns to the head, tragically. And yeah, so that's kind of like the end of their story in the sense of cops are no more, but now this guy has been, he's taken out the two cops who've been following him, and he's kind of on the run now to finish this plan. But enough time has passed where Danny Glover is a disgraced cop.
Yeah.
He's a recluse, like he's obsessed. He's the Charlie It's Always Sunny meme, you know, with Pepe de Silvia. And his throat has healed and he is talking. So enough time has passed, but he has eyes on
Zep.
Yes. Yeah, he has eyes on Zep. And so we've been watching him watch them. And before this, though, we do get this reveal that Adam has been up to no good, in the sense of he's lying who he is. Adam is a private investigator hired by the big reveal, but hired by Danny Glover to basically see what he's been up to. And what he's been up to is just cheating on his wife. That's really it. And I feel bad because Monica Potter is just and her cutter just like a poor pawn in this scheme. And that's really where Jigsaw's like logic is really, I know he's a murderer, but like really flawed.
Yeah, she has. There's no reason for her to be captured by Zep and be killed by Zep, because that's Zep's. We later find out that's Zep's goal is to kill them. Which is I don't know. Yeah, that's a little weird because.
Sorry to poke holes in your in your movie. But yeah, that's like one of those things of like. Because, okay, you made your case for Carrie Elwes. You made your case for Adam. Zep, to be honest with you, I don't remember what his crime was. Was he stealing drugs from the hospital? I don't really, like...
I forget.
Yeah. He's the last, like, recording. And, but the kids being the kid and the wife being involved, they're really just, like... Zep was going to do it. I mean, Zep was determined to complete this whole task. And he almost got away with it all.
He was, there's that one scene that goes on a little bit too long of him listening to the heartbeats.
Oh, yeah.
And he, like, points the gun at the kid, and the heartbeat's kind of going, and then points it at the mom, and it goes crazy. And he's, like, probably getting off to that, which is, a bit weird. And,
That's where
Zep,
that's where I think that's why that the mother-daughter kidnapping things like that. That's what I'm like. Oh, that to me is like the most uncomfortable and creepiest because it's like, okay, heartbeat, and I love that you brought that up because Zep. I think Zep to me, I'm like Zep's into it.
Oh yeah,
Zep's into it.
Oh, we see him earlier, and he's like, "I'm watching you," or he's being very weird for sure.
He's like, I watched Taxi Driver a bunch. I mean, this is my moment. So we found out Adam though is getting paid like $200 a day, and it's Danny Glover, and this also the Carol is still convinced. Well, then it's this disgruntled cop. He thinks I'm this guy, and I'm not. I do have one one thing I do found really, like, it's a funny piece of dialogue because clearly Adam is playing dumb, through this
Right.
whole process. And he's like, well, who gave you the stuff? Who gave you the money? Who hired you? And he goes, just a normal looking guy. And Danny Glover, in the eyes of the movie, is the most unique looking person. He's
Yeah.
a person of color. He has a raspy voice, raspier than normal Danny Glover, and a slit on his throat. And
Massive
he's like,
scar. Yeah.
and he moves kind of slowly from that
Yeah.
scar. That is a distinct looking human. And he's like, yeah, just normal guy. And I was like, yeah. I think he was just trying to not say anything.
Yeah,
But
yeah. He didn't he didn't reveal anything
yeah.
for quite some time, and I get it. He's been tailing Carrie for quite some time, and then you wake up chained to a pipe and with the guy you've been tailing this whole time in a dingy bathroom. So I'd be cautious.
Be a little cautious, but a few
Yeah.
things I kind of really skipped over was they found a box with some cigarettes in it and a cell phone and a note of like cigarettes are safe. It's the poison that would kill them, and they try to fake out the cameras to like smoke that cigarette, and like Lee Winnell in a very good comedy beat does the worst death scene, and it's meant to be like that.
Exactly.
So it's great, and then he gets electrocuted, which is like shit. This is in play.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we didn't get any hint of that, and Carrie thinks he's faking that too.
Yeah,
at some point.
As a character, he's not that good of an actor, man. You just saw it, like,
yeah.
So he, so that's all there, and the phone can only ring. It's a one-way call. It can only receive.
Yeah.
And he, when we learn about the whole Adam stuff, he gets a call, and his wife's on the phone, and his daughter, and then this is all happening, and then Monica Potter finds her opportunity and fights back and wrestles the gun away and succeeds. The guy gets back, but it's a very like tense scene in this tussle, and the kids are around, and like Danny Glover, because he's watching, comes in, and during this whole time, during this whole time, Dr. Gordon hears everything, and he's like, "What's going on with my family?"
There's like gunshots going on, screaming. He has no idea that Danny Glover just kicked the door down, busted in, and started fighting as well as and the phone is out of reach, so he can't. I forget how the phone gets out of reach, but
it got thrown away. Or kicked away further than his reach, and he has no items or time to construct something to grab it over like we did earlier with the recorder.
Yeah.
So while hearing that, this is our Saw. This is when he just starts cutting his leg off.
And he goes, and this is honestly like his greatest moment of acting. And it's just hard to watch.
Yeah.
Because, and even Lee Winnell doing a fantastic job, because he's like, "What are you doing, man?"
He's cutting it.
He's reacting. Carrie's yelling.
It's like, we'll
it's
figure
going
it
back
out.
and forth between Donald Glover. I mean, Danny Glover and
I would love if Donald Glover was in this.
Yeah. They're chasing each other in the cars, and they're shooting at each other, going, and it's just a constant like build while Carrie saws his leg off, and it's really well done.
It's nuts.
Those effects,
it's pretty nuts, and he saws his leg off. While that's going on, we do see the rest of it, right? Like Danny Glover, and then they're gonna shoot out, and like, so I said it earlier, like Danny Glover like ends, but we don't see his official end. Like he does get hit in the chest, and Zepp comes into the room. Now he's into the room, and he ran away from everyone. And we do know Monica Potter and the daughter are safe, even though, which is nice. And a little bit right before that, like you said, in their best scene of acting, Cary Elwes is free, and he crawls over to the dead body in the middle of the floor, puts the one bullet in, and is like, I just gotta do it. And he pops Lee Winnell, and he's pleading for his life. And then he doesn't crawl out immediately, because this is when Zepp kind of comes through. And Zepp comes through, and you get this great surprise of Lee Winnell jumps up and attacks him to get it back, and just brutally beats him with a toilet cover.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, and I like that scene a lot. Like, it's weird to think, like, it's the only time you're watching the movie with these two men change up. It's the only time they're close in the movie, and he's like, now he sees he's alive. Cary Elwes, he's dying, and he's sympathetic toward it. And he's like, I'll get you help. I will be back. He crawls away, and then this is when Lee Winnell plays the tape, and it's Zepp, and it gives us the now famous Saw flashback of the movie.
Yeah.
And and after that flashback, and this is when our guy in the middle of the room stands up, and anyone, we talked about that twist and it fucking you up. Anyone who tells me they figured that out, because a few people over the years said, I don't believe them. Do not believe them. When they're like, that's that guy. I don't believe it. Like,
it's not a possibility that you can think of, unless you're just. So the problem is, like, what you could have done is you could have been like, it's not him, it's not him, it's not him. Maybe it's the guy in the middle of the
maybe he put him
basically,
in there.
you could have looked at every single character, because you can't have a plot twist,
I think,
without revealing any character beforehand, or it's cheap and just not good. So yeah, you could have gone down the roster.
But let's say that you're seeing this for the first time, and between the years of, was 2004 this movie came out, 2004 and 2007. I just, we're not on Twitter as much, or the internet. Like, it's not spoiler heavy. You have to search. You have to be in the movie community. I have a theory that if someone tells me, or a person, hey, it's a good movie, a great twist in it, then you're looking for it. But if you're just turning it on and twists aren't meant to be known they're coming, it's better. And I think you're seeing that happen right now with Barbarian.
Yeah.
And even
telling someone that there's a plot twist is spoiling it.
Yeah. Especially, like,
you don't have to tell me the plot twist, but
I want to experience it.
So, for instance, before you get to it, I have not seen Barbarian, but the fact that I know, and you haven't revealed anything, but I have had multiple people say something, and so now I am expecting it, and it stinks, because I know I'm missing out on something really, really cool, and it's still going to be, I'm sure, great.
It's a good movie.
When I do watch it,
but
I'm sure I'm missing out on an experience that I wish I could have had. Yeah,
and I wish you could have that too, because I did go blind,
and who knows? I'm still pretty blind to it, so who knows?
Yeah, no, I'll stay blind to it.
Yeah.
More I would say is vague, and I actually used Malignant last year as this example, as well as. Then I'm looking for it, and then I feel like that's when, as a general, people's disappointment sets in, where I'm like, wow, the movie was so fun and good, and they used Barbarian, and then you see these people like, I didn't really like it. And it was like, that's because someone told you there was a twist coming. They didn't tell it to you, but you were expecting Z, and X showed up. That's just my, but no, Saw does it perfectly. And then before we wrap up a little bit, kind of last thoughts, Saw is one of my least favorite tropes in films is actually what Saw, the iconic Saw ending is. Here's the whole movie you just watched. And Saw is one of the outliers that does it really well. Like, I don't know what tropes you're not a fan of in film, but for me, like, we were just watching, I love this movie, Thanksgiving time. It's planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
At the end of that, when like Steve Martin has to think about the movie we just watched and we have to see it, drives me crazy in a movie. Just it's like I get it. I was there. We saw them get together. Saw does it in a way where I'm like, oh no, you're just giving us this piece together because that twist is so jarring.
Yeah.
You know, that we do have to see these motives again. Bryan is I know I've kind of been rambling this whole episode. Is there anything I missed or you want to add to Saw?
I'm a big with a filmmaking background. I tend to focus on the low budget films all across the board because it blows me away on what people can pull off. You look at, of course, Paranormal Activity.
Sure, yeah.
Very, very, very cheap. Hired actors off of Craigslist, filmed in his house. Like, I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, took over the Halloween release date.
Oh yeah, and of course made 6 billion other films just like Saw did. And so I gravitate towards the low budget, and I root for them, and I applaud them. And this is one of the best. And again, if you really want to tear it apart, sure, go for it. You could look at the bad acting, you could look at the bad, some of the bad sets, or you could look at how they stretched $1 million. You could look at how they. I mean, you really got to think and applaud. They made an iconic.
Oh, it's amazing! It's amazing
like
what they
the
did.
fact that people can make iconic characters before they know they're going to be iconic is really something special. And when it does turn into something iconic, it's like, man, they did not know that was going to be the case. When they paper mache and put ping pong balls and pulled him with the string on a bike.
Well, it's even
idea.
It's amazing because it's even something as low with that. I love that you put that out. Is the spirals on his cheek are literally now trying to be the new iconography of like the rebooted series. Like, and you don't know where that comes from. Yeah. Who thought I mean, for all we know, we could be sitting here talking about the pig mask. The way the motifs are laid out, the icons are laid out in the film, I think this one shines out a lot more too. If we wanted to comparatively, I earlier said this was like the match that sparked torture porn, but it's a really good movie. And the comparative of that is like Hostel comes out at the same time. And
exactly.
That's a fine movie. I have never had an inkling to ever revisit something like Hostel. For anyone listening or yourself, James Wan made another movie at this time too, and I actually think it's fairly good. It just doesn't get the credit. So he was contracted to make 2 horror movies. So they didn't know Saw was going to be a hit. So he also made Dead Alive. Not Dead Alive. Dead Silence.
Yeah. The puppet, right?
Well, pardon?
Was there a puppet?
Yeah, it's all about puppetry and like Angry Puppet. That's like his calling card, and it's a fun movie. I mean, it's not Saw. It doesn't have the same twist. I think we do get a Wahlberg who but yeah, so that's another really good one. And it's the same time when you think about it. I remember reading, and it was just like James Wan was like, "Well, we had this idea, and we had to make a movie, and he didn't give it his full attention because kind of had one foot in the door and out the door." And I was like, "Well, we have to make this because if Saw fails, that they needed something else." So check that one out, and I love the perspective you bring to the movie of just appreciating the low budget of it, but it working and looking, I mean, but look what James Wan's done with big budgets. Fast. Was he Fast 7 or Fast 5? No, I think he was Fast 7.
I'm pretty sure it's 7. Is that the
Yeah.
one where they're in Dubai?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the one with that's the one where Paul Walker passes and he has to handle it really well, and
Yeah, that's right.
that's a really fun and sweet and sensitive, this movie that James Wan kind of nailed. I mean,
Yeah.
I like I'm hit or miss with all superhero movies, but Aquaman is a shining DC movie where it's a ton of fun, and I
Dude,
I mean
I had a blast.
I noticed some of the funness of with filmmaking wise in Saw, right? There's
Yeah.
one shot in Saw that is straight out of Aquaman or the transition, and it's the car, Danny Glover driving away with the car, and it's like a Star Wars wipe almost, and then it goes to
Yeah.
the next scene, and it's the only shot like that in the movie,
Yeah.
and it's something like an Aquaman. It's kind of goofy, and it works.
Speaking of the one shot that never shows up again is in Malignant. They do the top down. The
Mm-hmm.
camera's looking straight down and following her through the house
Yeah,
at the beginning. Never happens again, and it's great.
yeah.
You know,
It's
it makes no sense, and I don't think it's even necessary. But I don't care. Put a camera somewhere else except for eye level, and I'm
mhm.
into it.
It's people having
And
fun.
he's
Um,
great. Yeah,
there's a reason why James Wan, even Lee Winnell made a really interesting film in Invisible Man.
yeah. An Upgrade. I don't know if you
Oh
saw
my god!
Upgrade.
Oh, buddy, I got it's actually below this chair. I have Upgrade. I love Upgrade.
Fantastic. $5 million budget. Like
Yeah, they've been doing it. I
what?
mean, uh, you know, Conjuring 1 and 2. I'm not a fan of 3,
Mhm.
but 1 and 2, and just like that whole thing is. So they took something really good of this, and they're still doing it, and I believe they pay it forward to uh,
Yeah,
filmmakers as well who need the work or not need the work, to make things work and not on that scale. And uh,
hmm
yeah, like you said, Paranormal Activity. I've talked about it on this show, and
yeah,
that's another one where they stretched the budget. Same with Blair Witch, and
hmm
all those people went on to, if they didn't make movies, produce really interesting stuff.
sure.
Yeah. Any I'll one more time. Anything else we to be said about Saw or our conversation here today?
Yeah, I don't know. I really do like watching Saul. Really wants me to get back through the series again, just
Mm,
because even though I think they do taper, um, two is just a really great connecting piece. And the way that they just keep Paranormal Activity movies kind of do the same. I think they get worse as they go, but the way
y-
that they kind of do callbacks is
mhm.
really smart and different and unique, and that's why I like visiting those movies.
Yeah,
Is
3.
it's smart.
Yeah, the third Paranormal Activity actually is, I think, the strongest one with the two little girls
It's so long.
in the
For some reason, I
80s.
did watch those, but
Yeah, it was in the
yeah,
80s.
okay,
But yeah, but you're right.
yeah,
The same kind of thing, and
yeah,
it is interesting. It literally took over Saw's like Halloween run at the box
yeah.
office for a couple years, and
I agree. Yeah,
I'm still waiting to them to fill that void with just something I could look forward to on a timed basis every year, even good or bad.
yeah, yeah.
Um. Anyway, Brian, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. And where can everyone find you if they want to reach you and all that stuff? Tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, so my handle is B Star Cinema, Star with two R's,
Mhm.
um, across the board.
Yeah, it'll be in the links.
Yeah, so TikTok is kind of where like the bigger audience is, but I tend to put all that same stuff over on Instagram as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean my whole thing is movies and um pop culture, Funko Pops, Comic Cons. I'm going to a Comic Con this weekend.
Yeah.
Anything that's related to pop culture, anything that's nerdy, I like to talk about. I like to showcase, and then of course, big proponent of physical media across the board. I like to hold a book when I read it. I like to hold the
Yep.
comics, and I like to see the movie and be reminded of the title that maybe I forgot about. But thankfully, I have it, so I can watch it whenever I want. Versus Googling where to watch, insert movie here,
It's
and
so much better.
praying that I have the app or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so much better. I've told you like a billion times already today, like it's seeing your videos and have gotten me to then buy more than I was already buying because it's like,
Yeah.
dude, no, I gotta replace it.
Yeah.
Or this, and so I love it, and everyone should check out your stuff. And once again, thank you so much,
Yeah.
everyone. You know where to find us. Stay frightful. Have a good one, all.
So yeah.
Welcome to Flyover State of Fear.